AirAssess. So how common are indoor air quality problems? Well, from the OSHA work that was done way back when, they estimated 20 to 30% of buildings had problems, and that maybe 70 to 80% are known not to have problems. However, even those, there are undetected problems that could show up. Now, the interesting thing about this is you can move from one category to another depending on how well you take care of your building or how you neglect it. So indoor air quality starts off with symptoms. If you don't have symptoms, you don't have a problem, theoretically. But you respond to sick building syndrome, which is just headache, fatigue, very non-specific symptoms, but that seem to happen more in the building than outside the building. Now, as a hygienist, I can deal with a lot of problems, and however, indoor air quality problems are probably the most complex we deal with because there are so many factors. There's thermal comfort, there's ventilation, there's chemical contaminants, biological contaminants. You also have ergonomics issues that factor in, the workplace stress, and personal factors. So if you're trying to figure out why somebody's tired in the afternoon and you've got all this to look at, it's pretty complex. So how do you measure this? Well, there's lots of equipment out there, and I've played around with many of these toys, and they do work and they have their place. But what is the gold standard? And if you look at the ASHRAE standard for acceptable air quality, it's trying to keep 80% or more of the people happy. And if you look at the thermal comfort standard, it's the same thing. So how do you get to that? But by asking people whether they're comfortable or not. So we tried a few surveys. The Ministry of Labor actually had a survey that they put out in the 80s. And it was a 6-pager, and you actually gave one questionnaire to the exposed, the problem area, and another one to another group, and you're supposed to compare them. But it was pretty laborious. NIOSH had one that was quite nice. I've used it a number of times, but it's very long, 11 pages. So I got contact with Kjell Andersson from Sweden, and he has a nice 2-pager that we really liked, and the people who were filling them out also really liked. And since 1993, we've done over 120 buildings and over 7,000 surveys, and we have it available through SurveyMonkey now and an automated report, so fairly easy to use. So the idea was, can we put this into an app? So the Swedish survey also has some comparison data that you can use, so you can compare the frequency of symptoms to buildings that don't have air quality problems. And we contacted Kjell Andersson, and I want to recognize him. He's quite an amazing man. I never knew what he looked like. Talked to him and conversed with him, but I went and got the picture, and that's what he looks like. But he has a civil engineering background along with occupational medicine, quite a combination. And what the survey covers is demographics, 12 workplace factors like temperature, lighting, things like that. Also stress questions, stimulating work, workload influence, and help from coworkers, 4 questions. And then health conditions, whether you have asthma, hay fever, or eczema, and present symptoms, 12 symptoms plus an other to be filled in. We also included an asthma screening questionnaire, which Kate Venables graciously allowed us to use as long as we had the reference in there. So there's the reference. And it's 9 questions, and if you score more than 3 of those, then you're flagged for further workup to see whether or not you have asthma, or if you already have asthma, whether your asthma is properly under control. We also had the Karasek job control questionnaire in there for expanding the stress portion of the questionnaire. However, Robert Karasek did not want us to include it. It took 8 months to decide that he didn't want to include it, and we already had it in there, so we had to take it out. However, we correlated the Swedish questionnaire, 4 questions, well, actually 3 of them. Too much work worked pretty good with demands, and influence and interesting work correlated as a combination with control. And so we were able to still use his matrix of putting a person into one of these 4 quadrants based on their responses. And now Sue will show you how the app works.
Thanks, John. So this is pretty exciting because you're the first audience besides internal audiences to OHCOW and CCUHS to see this. So the magic pointer that appears on screen is going to take us through. So AirAssess, it's all about improving indoor air quality. So if I was to use this, I'm the co-chair of my Joint Health and Safety Committee. I'd say, okay, committee, let's look at this together. So start at the very beginning, very good place to start. And we're going to have a look here at air quality, symptoms, and stress, all combined. And we need all 3 sections to get the results. So you see here some sample questions about thermal comfort. And then you say, well, now that I've answered some questions, I need to see my results. So you might notice that the color changed on a couple of them. And as we get to that, we find out that there are some tips involved, the little light bulb with the T in it, and the green check mark, you know, it's saying it's normal. But even at yellow, there's some concern. So that could be a leading indicator on something, right? Okay, and then symptoms, you want to have a look at that. And it gives you why that's so important. And again, click on the tips. And under stress, you get to see within this matrix between your job latitude and your job demands on the XY axis where things are laying out. And unfortunately, it's in the high strain category based on what was answered. The overall tip sheets are available at any time, and it's all built in. So this is really knowledge transfer at its best. It puts it right into the hands of workers in the workplace. And so for contaminants, you can see a good wide range of information and action items that you can take on. And over to the action plan, this methodology also exists in other apps that we've done, other accomplishments that we've had with OHCOW, and the action plan, the Learn, Organize, Assess, Change, and Evaluate continuous improvement cycle has been customized into a 5-step action plan for the actual AirAssess app. So very specific learn, organize, assessment. Notice it says things about HVAC systems, and reminding you to check the tip sheets, and of course evaluate. You don't want to be stagnant about it. Re-administer the survey and get help and reach out with questions. So back to John, who will bring it on home. Thanks, John.
Okay, and because we promised we would acknowledge, we have an acknowledgement section, obviously. And you can try out this app at this website. You can only get it, it only works properly on Google Chrome. And this is a temporary site. And if you use it, please get back to us and tell us how it works so we can work out the bugs. And if you have any ideas for improvement, we're open. Okay, and a big thank you to CCUHS for doing all the work.